Have you ever wished the people around you could hear the truth inside your head just once, so they would finally stop misunderstanding you? And have you ever feared the opposite, that if your thoughts were exposed, the people closest to you would discover not only what you endured, but what you quietly decided to forgive and what you refused to forgive? Welcome back to the channel. Today I am going to tell you a story that sounds like fantasy but feels like a mirror. A child is reborn into the same family, yet this time something is different. The whole family can hear the child's thoughts, every doubt, every memory, every silent observation. And the one person who relied on secrecy the most, the adopted daughter who built her power by controlling information, panics the moment the new reality begins. Because karma is not always a thunderbolt. Sometimes karma is simply truth becoming audible. In the first life, the child in this story was named Rowan. He was not the oldest. He was not the favorite. He was the quiet one. The one who learned early that peace in the house was not something you live in. It was something you tried to negotiate with your own silence. Rowan's family looked respectable from the outside. His father was disciplined and respected in the community. His mother was known as kind and generous. The house was clean. The family gatherings looked cheerful in photos. They had the kind of life people point to and say, they are doing well. But inside the walls, there was a subtle sickness, not constant screaming, something more slippery. A daily drip of comparison, a constant pressure to perform goodness rather than live honesty. And at the center of that sickness was a person who arrived with a smile and learned how to rearrange everyone's emotions like furniture. Her name was Liana. Liana was adopted when she was 9. The story the family told was beautiful. They said they rescued a child who needed love. They said they expanded their hearts. They said they were blessed to welcome her. And part of that story was true. They did open their home. But what they did not understand is that love is not only a house and food. Love is also emotional safety. Love is also consistency. Love is also boundaries that do not change depending on who is watching. Liana arrived with a history nobody fully understood, and she arrived with a skill that many hurt children develop to survive. She could read people fast. She could sense insecurity. She could sense guilt. She could sense pride. And she learned quickly that if you can control what people believe, you can control what people feel. At first, Liana acted like the perfect daughter. She was polite. She helped with chores. She praised the parents. She smiled at relatives. She called the mother by affectionate names that melted adults' hearts. She looked like gratitude, but underneath that gratitude was strategy. Liana noticed that Rowan's father had a soft spot for obedience and public image. She noticed that Rowan's mother had a soft spot for sympathy and rescuing. She noticed that grandparents loved anything that looked like sacrifice. She noticed that Rowan, the quiet one, did not fight for attention. So she began planting small seeds. Nothing dramatic. She would sigh quietly when Rowan walked into a room, as if his presence carried trouble. She would tell the mother, I do not want to say anything bad about him, but I think he dislikes me. She would tell the father, I am trying my best to fit in, but Rowan looks at me like I do not belong. She would cry at the right moments. She would apologize in a way that made adults feel guilty for suspecting her. She would be sweet in public and cold in private. When Rowan tried to defend himself, she would act shocked and say, Why are you attacking me? I thought you were kind. Rowan tried to speak up in the first life, but every time he did, the room turned against him. Because Liana had already built a story where she was fragile and he was threatening. Adults are oft untricked by vulnerability that is performed well, especially when they want to believe they are good people. So Rowan learned the most painful lesson a child can learn. In some families, truth is not enough. The family will choose the story that feels most comfortable. Years passed. Liana grew older and her influence grew stronger. She became the daughter who seemed to care the most. She handled small errands. She checked on grandparents. She complimented the parents in front of guests. She became the bridge between family members. And once you become the bridge, you get to decide who crosses and how. Rowan became the shadow. He was not abused in a way that left bruises. He was erased in a way that left a different kind of wound. He was blamed for tension he did not create. He was criticized for moods he did not have. He was dismissed as jealous when he tried to speak truth. People said he was ungrateful, even though he was the one who kept swallowing pain to keep the family calm. Then came the last year of the first life, the year that quietly ended Rowan Rust in everything. The father made a decision about inheritance and family business responsibilities. It was supposed to be fair, but Liana shaped it. She planted the idea that Rowan was unreliable. She brought up old mistakes that were not mistakes, just normal teenage confusion. She magnified them. She minimized her own manipulations. She framed herself as the responsible one. The parents believed her. Rowan realized he was not just losing money or status. He was losing recognition as a real member of the family. He felt something inside him go cold. He tried to speak to his mother privately. He said, "I feel like I am being pushed out of my own home." His mother looked tired and said, "Why do you always make things difficult? Liana has suffered so much. Be patient with her." Rowan wanted to scream. Suffered so much. Yes, she suffered. But why did her suffering become permission to harm others? Why did her pain become a weapon that could not be questioned? Rowan walked away, and for the first time, he understood something that feels harsh but is oft untrue. A family can be loving and still be blind. A family can be generous and still be manipulated. A family can mean well and still create suffering by refusing to face uncomfortable truth. Not long after, Rowan died unexpectedly, not with drama, not with a heroic goodbye, just gone. The family cried. They posted photos and wrote long messages about how much they loved him. Liana cried the loudest at the funeral. She held the mother hand. She called Rowan brother in public. People praised her for her compassion, but in private, she looked relieved. And this is where karma prepared its next movement. Rowan opened his eyes again. He was small again, lying in a crib. The room looked familiar. The ceiling cracks were familiar. The voices were familiar. The smell of the house was familiar. It hit him like a wave. He had been reborn into the same family. At first, he thought it was a dream, but the body sensations were too real. The weight of blankets, the softness of air, the sound of footsteps, the rhythm of the house. Then the real shock arrived. He had a thought, a simple thought. "I am back." And someone answered. His mother's voice came from across the room, soft and trembling. "Rowan?" Rowan froze. He had not spoken. He had not made a sound. He had only thought. His father's voice followed. "What did you say?" His mother whispered. "I heard him. I heard him in my head." The room went silent. Then Rowan's father said a sentence that changed the entire destiny of the house. He said, "I heard it too." Rowan realized the impossible truth. His thoughts were audible to them, not to strangers, not to the whole world, to the family. As if the universe said, "You did not listen before. So now you will listen in the only way you cannot ignore. In the following days, the phenomenon became undeniable. Whenever Rowan thought something strongly, the family heard it like a quiet voice arriving inside their own mind. Sometimes it was clear. Sometimes it was like a feeling shaped into words. But it was enough. The mother was terrified. The father tried to rationalize. The grandparents prayed and said, "It must be a sign." The house became nervous because everyone realized a new kind of honesty had entered. And then Liana came home from school. She walked in with her usual sweet smile. She said hello to everyone warmly. She leaned down to look at the baby and said, "He is so cute." Rowan looked at her with baby eyes and an adult memory inside. He thought, "You know what you did." Liana's face went pale. She stepped back as if someone had slapped her. The mother asked, "What is wrong?" Liana forced a laugh. "Nothing, just surprised." Rowan thought again, "You built your power on silence. That is over now." Liana trembled. The father stared at her, confused, as if the air changed. That night, Liana could not sleep. She sat in her room while the house was quiet and felt the walls closing in. For years she had controlled the family story. Now a baby could shatter it with a thought. She tried to tell herself it was stress. She tried to tell herself it would stop. But deep down she knew something older than logic. Truth had arrived. Over the next weeks, Rowan did not try to expose everything at once. He was not seeking spectacle. He was seeking justice and healing. He had learned in the first life that a flooded room does not become clean just because you shout about the water. The room becomes clean when you drain slowly and repair the leaks. So he chose a wiser strategy. He thought simple truths at careful times. When the mother comforted Liana after a small argument, Rowan thought, "You comfort her because you feel guilty, but guilt is not love." The mother burst into tears without understanding why. When the father criticized Rowan's older brother for being careless, Rowan thought, "You punish the wrong child because you fear being seen as unfair." The father went silent, jaw-eyed. When grandparents praised Liana for being sacrificial, Rowan thought, "Sacrifice without honesty becomes manipulation." The grandparents looked shaken, as if an old blind spot had been pointed at. And every time Rowan thought these truths, Liana panicked more, because she realized the family was fearing not only accusations, but patterns. She could survive one accusation. She could cry her way out of it. But patterns are harder to escape. Patterns reveal intention. Patterns remove plausible denial. Liana tried to fight back in the only way she knew. She attempted to plant a new story. She told the mother that Rowan thought's word art because he was spiritually attacked. She told the father that the baby must be influenced by negativity. She told grandparents they should take Rowan to a temple for cleansing. But Rowan thought, "You want to label truth as sickness so you can keep lying." The mother heard it and looked at Liana like she was seeing her for the first time. This is where the story shifts from revenge to awakening. Because the point is not to destroy Liana. The point is to stop the cycle of harm. Rowan understood something. Liana was not born evil. Liana had become skilled at manipulation because she once felt powerless. She had learned that tears could control adults. She had learned that victims are protected and accused people are punished. She had learned to weapon easy the sympathy she needed. Her karma was complicated. Then yet, complicated does not mean harmless. Rowan decided to do something that looks strange to people who only understand justice as punishment. He decided to expose the harm while also exposing the wound behind it. One afternoon, when Liana was alone in the kitchen, Rowan thought directly to her. I know you were afraid of being unwanted. I know you used control to feel safe. But you made me the cost of your safety. Liana dropped a glass. It shattered. She covered her mouth and whispered, Stop. Rowan thought. You can stop too. You can stop planting this karma. Liana collapsed into a chair. She started crying. Not the public performance cry, but a broken cry that sounded like someone finally losing the mask. The mother rushed in. The father followed. They saw Liana crying and assumed it was another drama, another manipulation. But then they heard Rowan's next thought. She is not only lying, she is afraid. The mother froze. The father looked confused. The mother asked gently, Liana, what are you afraid of? Liana tried to deny it. Then her words fell apart. She said, I am afraid you will stop loving me if you see who I really am. The mother whispered, We love you. But why did you hurt Rowan? Liana looked at the baby, eyes red, and said something honest for the first time in years. Because I thought if he was loved, there would be less love left for me. Silence filled the room. The father sat down slowly, as if his body finally understood the weight of what he had allowed. Rowan thought, love is not a pie, but fear makes it one. That line broke something open. For the next months, the family went through a painful cleansing, not ritual cleansing, relationship cleansing. The mother began seeing how she had been seduced by the rescuer identity. She wanted to be the good person who saved the adopted daughter. That desire made her blind to the way she neglected her own child. She grieved that blindness. She apologized to Rowan even though he was a baby. And yes, it sounds strange to apologize to a baby, but the apology was not for the baby mind. It was for her own mind. She needed to plant a new cause. The father began confronting his attachment to Image. He realized he liked Liana because she made the family look compassionate. He liked the story of being a noble adopter. He liked the praise. He realized he had treated Rowan as a guaranteed love that did not need protection. That realization created shame. But instead of turning shame into anger, he learned to sit with it. He began therapy. He began listening more. He stopped demanding obedience as proof of respect. The grandparents struggled the most. They were used to rituals that solved discomfort. They wanted to chant and cleanse and move on. But Rowan's thoughts kept returning them to the core lesson. Merit is not performance. Merit is character. And slowly, the house changed. Liana did not get expelled or thrown out, not because her actions were excused, but because the family chose a different kind of justice, accountability plus transformation. She had to admit specific lies. She had to repair relationships. She had to accept boundaries. She had to stop using tears to control. When she cried, people would comfort her, but they would not surrender truth to comfort her. That was new. That was painful. That was necessary. Liana began to learn what real love feels like. Real love does not require manipulation. Real love does not demand that someone else be sacrificed. Real love includes consequences. At first, she hated the boundaries. She felt attacked. She felt misunderstood. She felt tempted to run. But each time she tried to slip back into old patterns, Rowan would think something simple, like a bell. This is the old habit, and she would feel exposed again. Over time, she began to change, not into a saint, into a more honest human. Now, let me tell you the most important part of the story, because it connects directly to karma and to what you might be living through in your own life. The miracle was not that the family could hear thoughts. The miracle was that the family finally could not avoid responsibility. In many families, Harm continues because it is convenient to deny. People choose comfort over truth. They choose harmony performance over real peace. They choose the easiest story. But when thoughts became audible, denial became expensive. Every time the family tried to ignore what happened, Rowan's mind would remind them, and that reminder forced a different destiny. Rowan grew up in this second life with a strange advantage. He could not be gaslit the way he was in the first life. His inner reality could be heard. People could not easily tell him he was imagining things. They could not easily dismiss his experience. They had to face it. Yet Rowan also carried a responsibility. If his thoughts were weapons, he could destroy Liana completely. He could humiliate her. He could control her the way she controlled him. He could become what he hated. But he chose a different path. He chose compassion with boundaries because he learned the deepest karmic truth. If you fight poison with poison, the world becomes more poisonous. If you respond with wisdom, the cycle can stop. There was a moment years later when Rowan was a teenager in the second life. The thought-hearing ability had softened over time. It did not happen constantly anymore. It appeared most strongly in emotionally intense moments, as if the universe kept the feature only when it was needed. Rowan and Liana had a conversation late at night in the kitchen. She was older now, less dramatic, more tired, more real. She said, "I still feel shame. I still fear you hate me." Rowan looked at her and felt a familiar anger stir. He remembered the first life. He remembered the loneliness. He remembered being made small. Then he chose breath. He said, "I do not hate you, but I will not pretend it did not happen. The only way forward is honesty and consistent change." Liana nodded and said, "I wish I could erase it." Rowan answered, "You cannot erase seeds already planted, but you can stop planting the same seeds." And in that moment, the family heard his thought again, quiet and clear, like a prayer. "May we stop repeating suffering." His mother cried softly in the hallway. His father sat down in the living room and covered his face. Liana whispered, "Thank you." Rowan realized that the second life was not a reward. It was a responsibility. And this is the teaching I want to leave you with tonight. Many people wish for supernatural abilities to solve their pain. They want truth to be exposed. They want enemies to be revealed. They want lies to collapse instantly. But the deeper work is not supernatural. It is ethical. What do you do when you finally have power to expose someone? Do you use it to punish? Or do you use it to end the cycle? In Buddhist wisdom, wisdom without compassion becomes cold, and compassion without wisdom becomes naive. The path is to hold both. This story shows that karma is not only about someone being caught. Karma is also about what the harmed person becomes after being harmed. Rowan could have become cruel. He did not. That choice changed the family destiny more than any supernatural mechanism. If you are living with a manipulative person in your life, this story offers a practical mirror. You do not need magic. You need clarity. You need boundaries. You need documentation when necessary. You need allies. You need calm strategy. And you need an inner practice that keeps your heart from becoming as twisted as the situation. If you are the person who has manipulated others, this story offers another mirror. Your fear might be real. Your wounds might be real. But using wounds as permission to harm others creates karma that will return as loneliness and shame. The path out is accountability and honest change. And if you are simply someone who feels trapped in family patterns, remember this: patterns change when someone finally tells the truth and lives it consistently. Now we arrive at the ending. Years later, Rowan stood in the same house that once felt like a war zone. The walls had not changed much, but the air had. The mother laughed more now. The father spoke softer. The grandparents stopped using rituals as a shield and started using them as reminders to be kind. Liana became a person who volunteered quietly, not for praise, but because she knew what it means to be rescued and what it means to be accountable. Rowan looked at them and thought something simple. This is what it means to honor karma, not to demand punishment, to cultivate awakening. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this story stirred something in you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever wished people could hear your truth? And what would you want them to finally understand? And have you ever seen a family pattern change when someone chose honesty over comfort? Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and stay connected. Your support helps these long stories continue, and your voice might help someone else feel less alone in their own home struggles. Until next time, keep your heart compassionate, keep your boundaries strong, and remember that the most powerful rebirth is not getting a new life. It is choosing a wiser mind in the life you already have.